Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Turtle Wins the Race Home-Based Business Podcast, where we talk about home-based business, selling online, and everything related to that. Last week, I was talking about burnout. I'm still feeling kind of like a vague ennui, but, it's not that big a deal because I have other things I can do. I did want to address kind of a time thing. Like, how long is it going to take me to feel less burned out? I don't know. But in the meantime, I'll do other stuff and eventually it will pass. And I will say that after talking to John from Go Imagine last week, and if you haven't seen that video, I would go watch it. It is long, but it was a good interview and it's edited down from the actual time. But that's posted on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that. That did help. That helped, and it kind of did clarify for me that I want to kind of do other stuff. But what is normal? What's normal with time? What is normal with the time that it takes to build a business? What's normal with how long it takes to see results? Because I think that there is a lot that's presented to people these days that's very get rich quick. It's very passive income. It's just unrealistic. It's very unrealistic. And as I was talking to John, we were talking about people, the question, how much traffic does Go Imagine get? And he said that's the wrong question, because if you're looking for instant traffic, then that might not be the right platform for you right now. But in 5 years, the traffic is going to be there because it's growing exponentially every month. And I keep getting, I get these comments all the time. But after that conversation, I also was getting comments on other videos with people, and this happens like I said, it happens all the time. People saying, I've had my Etsy shop open for 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. I'm not getting any sales. I'm about ready to quit. And okay, look, it takes a long time to build a business. And when I started way back in 1999, when I started my home-based business, I had little kids. I didn't have a lot of time to devote to the business, and I was doing birthday cakes and things like that. And you eventually realize that the birthday cakes are not going to really make a whole lot of money. So you look to see what else there is. And it was wedding cakes, because they do take more time to make and it's more customer contact and it's more of that. But the profit is a little bit better. And it's not, the one thing I will stop and say is that the wedding industry is not a giant ripoff. Let me just say that right here. Because people say, oh, why do you pay? Wedding cakes cost so much more than a birthday cake. Okay, first of all, you guys know what goes into it. Wedding cakes are custom orders. Every wedding cake is a custom order. Nobody just calls you and says, I'd like a wedding cake. Okay, please deliver it here. Bye. They want tasting appointments. They want meetings. They want designs. They want you to kiss their butts. It's just a lot more work. All right. And it's the same thing with anything in the wedding industry. There's a level of customer care that goes into that. And this kind of talk, it dovetails with the time thing, because you have to assume that there is going to be a time lag between when you start your business and when you build your business to the point that you have a good reputation, people know your brand, and people actually seek you out. And I got to the point with my wedding cakes where I would meet people at functions, just out and about, just in the wild. I would meet people and they would say, what do you do? And I would say, I own a wedding cake business. And they would say, oh my God, I wanted to hire you for my cake, but you were booked. And I got married 6 years ago and I still remember that. And it would make me feel bad, but I had a good reputation in town. I baked everything from scratch. So people wanted to come to me because of my brand and my services. But that took time to build. When you first start out, you're making birthday cakes and it takes time to build. So when people post and say, I've been selling on Etsy for 3 weeks, I haven't gotten any sales, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, you're probably not doing anything wrong, but it's not realistic to expect instant success. It's not realistic to spend, a week and think that you're going to get sales rolling in. And I understand that this is presented to people on YouTube as the norm, but that is not the norm. That is not how it works. And I say that a lot on this podcast. That's not how it works, but it's not normal to have a lot of sales right away. there are things that you can do, like the whole business model of just slap something up, run a ton of ads. Well, that might work to get you some sales, but the ads are going to eat into your profit so much that you might see a big revenue number coming in, but then the expenses number is right up there. So they're pretty much the same. You're not really making any money. So let's say that it takes time to build up a real customer base where people are finding you organically and they're not finding you just through ads, which then eat into your profits and you're not really making any money. And I think we've all seen on Shark Tank, which is a really good example of this, where someone will come in and say, our company made $10 million last year. And they all sit up and they're like, ooh, that's great. Because they're thinking, ooh, what's the profit? And then they say, what's your profit margin? And they say, we are in the red. We didn't make any money in profit. And you can see them visibly go, oh, okay. Because they know that this is not a sustainable business if every single thing that you're doing is coming in through ads and you're not making a profit. You can have every single sale that you get coming in through ads and still make a profit, but that takes management, right? So what is normal with a home-based business? And I would say that if you are on Etsy and you are running constant ads to get sales and it's eating into your profit margins, number one, you need to look at your numbers. Is it worth your time? Is it even worth your time to do this? Because if you're making $3 an hour after all of your expenses, you could go get a job at CVS checking people out, and you're going to be making more money than that. And you don't have the responsibility of having to deal with everything else that goes with running a home-based business. And you know what? Some days that's a very attractive idea. It's not a bad idea to go work for someone else and then come home and not have to think about the whole thing all the time. So I'm not even there isn't even a normal, but normal is time. Normal takes time. There's no predefined idea of you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong if it takes you longer to build a business. And especially if you're in a niche that is very competitive, because that's just going to make your learning curve, your success curve, whatever you want to call it, that's going to take a longer time because you're just dealing with more competition. If you can find a niche that has no competition and is also something that people buy, because those two things have to work, then that's a great thing. However, sometimes you find a niche with no competition for a reason. It's because nobody wants that thing. Pet rocks. It used to be really great. In the 70s, when I was a kid, everybody wanted a pet rock and I had one, but not so much now. And people do still sell them, but it's not going to be as big a seller as it was. So there's too many factors to go into saying this is a normal time frame, but it's not instantaneous. And if you go into selling online, wherever you're selling, whether it's a website or Etsy or Go Imagine or eBay or Amazon, and you expect overnight success, you're going to be disappointed. You might have overnight success, but that is not the norm, right? And I do understand. I've said on YouTube, there's a lot of this presented like, hey, this is all you have to do. Those people are doing that because people want that. I know that people want an easy way. People want the answer, but there is no one answer that works for everyone. And I was just chatting with Becky, who is in my eShop Success program and my Pinterest class. And we talk about Pinterest all the time because we were both in the Pinterest Creator Rewards last year. But she was saying that she's doing some stuff on her Pinterest pins and it is immediately making them get more impressions. I tried it and it didn't work. But the thing is that Pinterest puts different filters on different accounts. So what works for my account might not work for your account. And it's hard to say one thing that's going to work for everyone because there are too many factors involved, and that goes for everything. So there are general things to keep in mind when you're starting a business. Number one is you're going to have to work and probably not see any results for a while, and you need to be patient. As long as you know that you're doing it the right way, it will probably come in the future. But then you have to say, how long am I willing to wait, right? Because like we were just talking about Pinterest takes like 8 months. If you have a new Pinterest account, it can take 6 to 8 months to 10 months or to a year. I mean, it takes a long time to actually get any decent, sustainable traffic because Pinterest is a search engine and it does take time to categorize things, and that's just how it works. And sometimes you'll pin something else. One of them works and one of them doesn't. And there's no real explanation of why, because Pinterest is Pinterest. But if you're pinning things and expecting immediate traffic, that's not going to work. So part of it is how long does it take? But part of it is also how long are you willing to wait? And if you are a very impatient person, this is probably not the right business for you. If you are a very impatient person, being an entrepreneur, being a home-based business, running your own business, being your own boss is probably not going to work. You have to understand that you need to put the work in, and it's going to take time. And it's the same thing with Etsy or eBay or Amazon or your own website especially, because you have to do things on your own website since it's not a marketplace and it doesn't have all that organic traffic coming in. But even if a platform has organic traffic, it doesn't mean they're going to come to you. It has traffic to the platform. That doesn't guarantee traffic to your shop. All right, so I'll just put that out there. But if you have a separate website, you have to understand that it's going to take 8 to 10 months until Google finds your site and starts sending you consistent traffic, because it will find your site right away. But it takes time for Google to decide where you kind of should be in search results. And in that time, you have to do a lot of work to tell Google, this is where I should be, so that you can be found. And people will say, oh, you can't outrank Etsy ever. Well, I call BS on that, because I have several like pretty important search terms for my shop, for my business, that I do outrank Etsy. And on some of them, I outrank Amazon. So there are things that you can do to get into Google search results. That's not a big deal, but it takes time. It's not hard, but it takes time. So if you're the impatient person that just is like, I only have a month to devote to this, I'm going to work real hard on it. Well, that's great. You can get everything set up in a month, but then you need to wait for the other systems that you are relying on to actually find you and set you up the way that they do. And they all work differently. I'm doing an experiment right now, and I've talked about my secret project. It's not really a secret project. I have a cake decorating blog that I wrote when I first started. I mean, when blogging was blogging way back in the day. Way back in the day, in my time, And I think about that. It's like I probably started it around maybe 2001. I mean, so this is a really old blog, and you can tell when you look at this blog as it sits. Number one, it's on, it's a free blogging platform. It was just what I would do is I would decorate a cake. I would take the cake, I would set it up, I would take pictures, I would come home, I would post the pictures and say, this is the cake I did this week. And the people who read that blog were cake decorators. And we all did this, and everybody looked at each other's cakes, and that's how people used to look at blogs. This blog is not in any way, shape, or form optimized for Google, all right? So I'm thinking, well, I have all this free time, right? No, I don't. But I do enjoy blogging, and I thought I'm going to do a little experiment because this could kind of trickle over into the other e-commerce stuff, because this blog is not monetized for e-commerce. It's not anything to do with what I sell. It's about cake decorating specifically and decorated wedding cakes. And I don't really, it has nothing to do with my products. It's just a separate thing that's been sitting there. It's not connected to my website. It's just a separate blog. So I'm like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to revamp it for Pinterest. And I'm going to see if I can get this thing to rank on Pinterest. And I'm going to get traffic from Pinterest. I'm not even going to worry about Google, because none of these articles are really things that would be found in Google. And you have to make that distinction, because Google is one type of search and Pinterest is another type of search. And there is overlap. You can be found in Google from your Pinterest posts and that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking, I'm going to just use Pinterest and get traffic to this blog. And it is working. But, in the meantime, I realized that if I want to put ads on the blog, I have to optimize it for Google to a certain extent. So I'm working on that now, in all my free time. And really, it needed help. This blog needed a lot of help to get it up to standards that I would look for these days. So I've been editing photos and stuff like that. It's taking time. But I am getting traffic from Pinterest already. It's been 2 weeks. All right. Now, Google is not giving me any traffic. And I do have it registered in Google Search Console. I have Pinterest. I've been pinning things kind of infrequently as I'm updating these posts. But I'm getting traffic from Pinterest already. So you have to decide for yourself. And this is to go back to how long does it take. Some things are faster than others. but some things are more suited to different platforms than other platforms. This specific blog is not suited for Google. It's not suited to be found in Google search as much. It probably will be eventually for some things, but this is much more Pinteresty. It's a much more Pinterest suited type blog. And if you understand where are your products suited, where are you suited to sell, where is your product suited to be, promoted, then that's great. And that will help. But there's still a time period. There's a time where you have to put in the work and you're not going to see any results. And I know that's very frustrating, but as long as you're doing the work, then you know that down the road, if you're doing it the right way, which is not to be scammy and it's not to be shady, if you just do it the right way, eventually it will pay off. But it's the eventually part that gets people, right? Because you don't know how eventually is. You don't know what that means. So you have to decide for yourself, how long am I willing to put into this? And if your answer is, I'll give it a few months, that's not enough. And you might as well just not do it. Don't do it. Go do something else. But if you're willing to put in like 1 or 2 years into building a business that is going to sustain itself organically, you're going to have a better shot. And I will give an example of like things that are suited. Did you guys see, I think it was the NBA playoffs. My husband was watching this and I'm sitting there playing Zelda naturally because I'm not going to watch a basketball game, but that's what he was doing. So I'm playing the game and I hear kind of, in the air somewhere, breaks through my consciousness, this segment promoted by Etsy. And I looked up and I said, did he just say that this was promoted by Etsy? And I said, I think I heard him say that. But then I'm thinking to myself, why would Etsy promote on the NBA playoffs? I can see them advertising on TLC, which is, I watch that all the time with their trashy shows. I can see them, I've seen ads like during the nightly news every now and then, which really strikes me as probably spending a lot of money. I don't know how much that costs. But just the type of places that you advertise kind of need to fit your customer base. And I know that Etsy is looking to get more men on the platform. So I see the idea about promoting during the NBA playoffs. However, I don't think that was probably the right spot. I don't know what kind of return on their ad spend they got on that. I could be completely wrong. It could be that all the guys that were watching the NBA playoffs, and I'm not saying that only guys watch the NBA playoffs, so don't leave me comments. But we know, stereotypically, the majority of people that watch the NBA playoffs are probably men. And that's why Etsy was advertising there, because they thought, where can we advertise that men will see our ad? Oh, let's do sports. Okay. So I doubt that there were a lot of people who rushed over to Etsy because of an ad during the NBA playoffs. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I could be totally wrong. But you need to think about this. You need to think about the reality of what you're doing. Is it time that you want to put in? Are you putting in the right time? And this kind of goes back to, are you doing it right? You need to be realistic about this. And yeah, take a stretch every now and then. Stretch and advertise somewhere where you might not get a good return, but you need to be willing to lose that money if that's your thing. So just as far as what's normal, as far as getting steady sales and putting the time in and putting the work in and how long it takes and the effort that you have to put in, you have to understand that this is not an instantaneous thing. And it's definitely not passive income. It's definitely not set it and forget it, regardless of where you're selling. It can be done. I've been making a full-time income selling online and selling from my home since 1999. Well, maybe not since, I think the first year that I did cakes, I profited $4,000. And that first year when I made that money, I was like, okay, I can do this. And it's just a matter of building it. But then you have to say, okay, now what can I do? Like I said, I started out with birthday cakes. And then I'm like, wedding cakes is going to be more profitable. That's what I'll start. Then you have to learn about the wedding industry. So you have to shift, adjust, tweak, be willing to move a little bit out of your comfort zone maybe. But you also have to be willing to be patient. Because I said, like, that was 1999, right? And it probably took me maybe 3 or 4 years to build up to what I would consider to be a full-time income. And that was working on it a lot. So if I had said, I'm going to do this for a few months, it never would have gone that far. And I never would have even gotten into this business. And I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you. I'd probably be sitting on the couch relaxing. So I don't know. Did I win? I don't know. Leave me your thoughts about this. And how long did it take you? How long did it take you to get to where you are now, regardless of where that is. From the time that you started to where you are now, how long did it take you? And don't compare yourself. People say, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. That's 100% right. It's trite and it's a Hallmark card phrase, but it's true. You don't compare yourself to people who are way far along, because that overnight success probably took 10 years. Give this video a thumbs up. I will talk to you later.